The advertising channels are constantly making changes to try to make our lives as advertisers easier. Sometimes they give us new targeting options, other times it's different functionality, and the one we want to talk about today is an expansion of an existing functionality. Google Ads has an auto-applied ad suggestions feature that they've had for a little while. We already have a video about that you can check out right here. Recently, they've expanded that to have a number of other auto-applied options within the accounts, so it can make a lot of changes for you on your behalf. Some of these might be good, some of them maybe not so much. So today what I want to run through are what the changes are that Google can make for you automatically, talk through the pros and cons and whether you might want to use them or not, and then I want to show you where in the interface you can check to see if your account is opted in and how you can use a trust but verify strategy if you want to test some of these options. Before we jump into the interface, I want to show you what the changes are that are eligible to be made in your accounts automatically. And there are three main categories of the changes that Google can make. The first is going to be around bids, and the second is going to be around your ads, and the third is going to be around the keywords themselves. And as you can see here for the bids category, it's not just one change. There are actually up to 10 changes that Google can make for you around your bids. I'm not going to go through each one of these because they kind of fit into different categories, but let's go through the different sections that are in here and just talk about each. The first says that Google can automatically upgrade your conversion tracking to data-driven attribution. A couple of years ago, Google started making a push to adjust your account attribution model to be either data-driven or position-based and shift away from last-click attribution. Personally, I don't actually have a problem with this. This is something I would be fine leaving in place because data-driven attribution, that model, is not eligible for all accounts until you've reached a certain amount of conversion volume and Google has enough data. But I do typically opt all of my accounts into it, so I would probably leave this first box checked that says when my account becomes eligible, shift me into data-driven attribution. The next handful of targets here is around shifting into automated bidding strategies. First is around enhanced CPC, then impression share, CPA, ROAS, maximize clicks, maximize conversions. Each one of these bidding strategies has its own inherent strengths and weaknesses. We actually have another video where I go through each of the different bidding strategies on Google Ads that you can check out on your screen right now. But the question in this moment is, do you want Google to automatically change your bidding strategies for you? Personally, I wouldn't want that. I tend to take a very hands-on approach to the accounts that I work on, and I want to make the decisions when we shift into a new bidding strategy because I'm probably going to set them up as an experiment more so than just shifting the bidding strategy overall. If you're curious about how to set up an experiment in Google Ads, we do have another video that you can check out here as well to show you how to do that. But I just probably am not going to let Google automatically shift me into a new bidding strategy. This is up to you. If you take a less hands-on approach, if you kind of want the machines to do the learning and testing for you, maybe you want to leave it opted in. But personally, I'm not going to let Google do that. The last segment here is around adjusting the targets within those bidding strategies that you have, either adjusting your CPA or ROAS targets or target ROAS lowering where you're trying to drive more incremental return on ad spend as opposed to being as efficient as possible. Again, these sorts of things, it's going to be left up to how you manage your account. Maybe you want Google to make these changes for you. Maybe you want to be the one routinely going in and making bid adjustments to your accounts, but either check or uncheck this box based on how you manage your account and whether you want to be in control. The next group is actually a joint of a couple different groups. For some reason, they have repairs in their own section by itself, but this is going to be all around your ad copy and extensions. Just like in the bid section, that first checkbox is going to be a bit different than the rest of the different options that we have in here. It is the checkbox for use optimized ad rotation. So at a campaign level, you get to choose if you want to have your ads rotated to optimize for best performance, or if you don't want them to rotate for best performance and you want them to rotate closer to even. The ads are never going to rotate evenly anymore. That setting went away a long time ago. This is another one of those checkboxes where I'm not going to let Google optimize my ad rotation for performance. So I personally would uncheck this first box because I want to try to have my ads show more evenly because I'm always going to be doing some sort of ad test. So if you want your ads to show more evenly, I would uncheck this box and make sure that your campaign settings are in place. The next category of changes we can make for your ads are a little bit in this left-hand column, some in the right-hand column, and also the repairs down below. And this is going to be adjusting your ad copy based as it is, whether it's testing new ad text for repeatedly used phrases, improving responsive search ads, improving responsive display ads, adding assets to your responsive search ads, or repairing your ad text. You'll see there are a lot of pop-up icons here that have the exclamation point in it. Every single one of those says that this functionality may be limited based on the language settings that you have in your account. So there are some limitations as to what Google can use. If a lot of you are advertising in English, my guess is that you will be opted into this because that's probably the primary language that Google understands. But these changes are going to effectively adjust what you already have in your ad copy. It's going to fix things that it thinks are wrong or that you made a mistake, maybe a typo. If you have something misspelled, it might fix that, or it might add in new headlines or descriptions to your responsive search ads or display ads, something along those lines. It's going to take the ad unit you already have and make adjustments to it. The last category that we have is to simply add things to your account. It's going to add callouts, site link extensions, add descriptions to your site links, add structured snippets, create dynamic search ads, responsive search ads, or responsive display ads. Now we're getting into the point where it's not just tweaking what you have made, it's creating an entire new ad for you. And this is back reminiscent of the auto-applied ads that I mentioned in the introduction. This is the same type of functionality. If Google sees that it can write an entire new ad unit and add it into your campaign that it thinks will perform well, it's going to do that. Whether it's adjusting the text or creating entirely new assets, I personally do not want that to be done in my accounts. Maybe you do. Maybe you're happy with some of the auto-applied suggestions you've seen come through, or you're happy to have somebody else kind of looking over your shoulder and making adjustments if you've made a mistake in your ad. But personally, I have too many accounts that I work on that the language has to be very specific, has to be approved by my clients before it can go live. So this is simply just not an option for me to have Google create new ads without my oversight. The last category is going to be around your keywords and targeting, because there are some non-keyword aspects in here. There are lots of different types of options in here. Some of them are going to be simply to expand your reach or to add different targeting options. In the upper left and bottom right, we have adding search partners or display targeting expansion. There are also some other options in here to where it'll add new keywords, it'll add the broad match versions of your keywords, or it will remove certain keywords. These are all different adjustments to where Google Ads is effectively extending your reach in an automated fashion. Again, if everything is performing well and you feel like you could use some expansion, these options might make sense for you, but I don't necessarily know if I would want Google to do it for me. Again, I am a very hands-on account manager. I know what's going on. I have a decade of experience, so I know what each of these does and I know my own strategy. But if you are maybe a little bit more inexperienced, these might seem helpful to you, but I want to make sure that Google is making the changes that are in the best interest of the account. So we're going to have a trust but verify type of approach. We trust it and we say, yes, you can make these changes, but I'm going to make sure that the changes you're making are in my best interest rather than just giving you carte blanche to do whatever you want. Overall, there are up to 35 different checkboxes you can have in this section of the Google Ads interface to get all of these different auto-applied suggestions. And I know I didn't show you where to find that. I'm actually going to do that next. I wanted to make sure that we walked through everything before I showed you where it was. Next, all you need to do is go to this URL. I know it's long, it's kind of ugly, but partner-google.com/apps/auto-applied recommendations/home. And this, no matter which account you are logged into, will take you to a screen where you can see all of the accounts that your login has access to and what their opt-in options are for these auto-applied suggestions. And that's where we're going to head next. I have it hidden from you for this view of the screen, so I'm sorry, but I'm on that partner-google.com URL, and this is what the screen's going to look like to most of you. There are a couple different ways to read it. There's this huge welcome message here that I'm honestly not going to pay attention to because I've already gone through it, but there are two different ways that you can navigate to different accounts, and it depends on how you have access. So the first option up here is going to be accounts, and this is if you have been added to individual accounts with your email, you would click here. and any of the additional accounts that you have would show up in the right-hand portion. But to make it so we don't have to blur out quite as much, I'm just going to stick with the bottom option here. And this is where we can find all of your manager accounts. Any MCC that you have access to will also show up down here in this option. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this one MCC. And once it fetched all of the accounts, now you can see the entire account list that is in here, and it will give the status and the selected recommendations on each account. As you can tell, we're not huge fans of the auto-applied suggestions because most of these say not activated, but if I scroll down, I can find an account that has some. And this is what it's going to look like. It will have a green activated line on it, and then over on the far right, it will have a selected recommendations and the number that has been opted in, and then the activation history. So if you do want to change which recommendations you have checked into, as you remember, I said there are 35 options at the beginning. This one only has 32. You can come in and click on this box, and this brings up the different sections and the checkboxes that we looked at in PowerPoint just a minute ago. So if you decide that you do want to keep the marginal ROI, you can check the box here and then update the recommendations down below. But if you want to get rid of it, if it was already checked, you can uncheck this, or you can uncheck all of the other boxes and make it so you have no auto-applied suggestions. But for right now, I'm just going to leave it as it is. If you've set your account so that you have none of these changes activated, you don't really need to do anything else. Google's not going to make any changes for you. All of the changes are going to be on you. You need to make them to optimize your account. But if you do have some that are activated, the last thing I want to talk about is how you can find which changes have been made by Google so you can follow through with that trust but verify step. So I'm going to hop into an account that has some auto-applied suggestions made, and we'll see what those look like. Once you're in your Google Ads account, we'll need to go to Change History, which is going to be over here in this light gray navigation, and it's usually under this More option. You need to scroll down and find Change History. During a period of time in this account, nobody was managing it, so the only changes that were happening were the auto-apply recommendations from Google. You can see in this user time and date column that anything that's done by Google is going to have this recommendations auto-apply. Right now it says beta because this is in a beta, but it's calling out that this was done by that auto-apply recommendations tab. And then you get to see the change that was made as well. So in this instance, it added 3 exact match keywords. If you have these auto-apply suggestions running when you are also making changes on your account, you can apply a filter and filter by the user who has made those changes, and you'll have to check the box next to the recommendations auto-apply. In this specific account, there are a bunch of different line items for that same thing, and I think that each type of change that Google has made will give you a new line item of that recommendations auto-apply beta user. But basically, you'll just have to check the box next to it and filter for that user, so it'll make your change history look effectively like this, where all of the changes are done by the recommendation auto-apply beta. Because these changes were done a certain amount of time ago, they were a few months ago as of the recording of this video, it says that the changes can't be undone, but there are some options that you can undo as long as it's within 30 days. So if you are going to let Google make these auto-applied recommendations to your campaigns, I suggest you go in on a regular basis, maybe every couple of weeks, at least every 30 days, check to see what changes they've made, expand the keywords, look and see which keywords they've added, which keywords they've removed, and make sure that they are in the best interest of your account. And if you decide that you don't want those keywords in there, all you have to do is click the undo button when it's still available in that 30-day window. So some of these changes can be undone pretty easily as long as you are constantly going in and checking the changes that Google has made. When it comes down to it, there's no right or wrong answer to whether you should or shouldn't use these auto-apply recommendations. I personally might not use most of them, but there are some accounts where I'm sure that relying on this automated tool is what helps propel the account forward. And as long as somebody is going in, making sure that the account changes are in the best interest of the account, it should be working just fine. I'll leave it up to you to decide whether you want to opt in or opt out of these changes. But if nothing else, now you know all the different types of changes that Google can automatically apply to your account, how to go check and see if you're enrolled, how to opt out if you want to, and then how to make sure that you can undo some of the changes that have been done in your account. Thanks for watching our video. If you thought it was useful, give us a thumbs up below.
We release a new video at least once a week, so if you want to get notified of when a new one comes out, be sure to subscribe to the Paid Media Pros channel.